Hey guys, so per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. So many moons ago on Bitcoin markets, I came across a picture, I think green checkmark put it out, I can't exactly remember. But basically he's the one who introduced me, him or her, I don't know, introduced me to the idea of what Wyckoff is, what it was, what the purpose is, its predictive value. So today I wanted to explain some Wyckoff stuff, break it down a little bit. As usual, everything's going to be in the description, tons of extra reading. There are tons of videos on this on YouTube, so feel free to watch further explanations. So as you can see here, it was actually quite predictive as far as the structure at the time, the structure going forward, the best place to enter for the new trend, etc. So if we break that down a little bit on the next couple charts. So this is just a general overview. This isn't necessarily Wyckoff, but it's a good like cheat sheet as far as just markets in general. You get down here, basically it's sideways, up, sideways, down, sideways, okay? And in between there, you'll get things like flags, or you'll get rising wedges, stuff like that. I've talked about this before, but so in Wyckoff, this is called accumulation, and this is called distribution. And as they mention here, this is a W pattern, this is an M pattern. You'll see lower, higher lows rather, and here you'll see lower highs, showing weakness or showing strength of trend, etc. So again, accumulation, distribution. In between there is considered markup. There's a ton of jargon for Wyckoff model logic, so I'm going to try to avoid using any of it, but you're welcome to look it up. So there's some argument that, like I showed on the previous tweet, that Bitcoin is currently in this sort of trend, in this Wyckoff cycle. Okay, I think it's pretty clear that it's not part of the distribution markdown phase. It's definitely in the post-accumulation now, post-reaccumulation probably, mark-up phase. And then this chart's from August 7th, but here you can see sort of how you'd label that based on the stock charts version of Wyckoff. Accumulation, breakout, reaccumulation, correction, etc., etc., etc. And that chart was on the monthly. This is the daily. So again, Wyckoff, it's four things. It's trend identification, it's reversal patterns, it's price projections, which virtually nobody talks about. Something that's really important to recognize: anytime there is a pattern on any chart, market, whatever, there's always going to be a price projection on that pattern that you can measure in some way. So usually people forget about that, but another thing people generally forget about is volume. I'm not going to talk about volume on this at all, but basically Wyckoff uses volume to confirm things like the spring, the accumulation, the breakout, etc., etc., etc. And then the fourth part of Wyckoff is trend position. So I'm going to break those down. Here what I did is just drew out some horizontals, just to, if you've never seen this before. Again, accumulation, breakout, reaccumulation, correction, etc., etc. So there are some ways to identify a trend. You're welcome to use anything you want. Obviously, if you want to use a diagonal line, go for it. Just showing this is the ceiling, the diagonal ceiling. Okay, and we broke that around this area. So then you could say, well, that trend is probably close to over or currently over. That doesn't mean we immediately swing into an uptrend. It just means the definite downtrend is either weakening or over. And you can say the same thing about this current uptrend. If you were to draw a support diag from here to here, it's still got a lot of room to go as far as testing the uptrend. So there's plenty of room, and I'll show you that in a different way. But you can do trend identification any way you want. If we look at the cloud the way it works on the cloud is if price is below the cloud, sustained below the cloud, here, that signifies bearish momentum, bearish trend, etc. But if it's above, like we are now, like we have been since October, that signifies bull trend. Now you can see there's some dangerous flirting with the bear trend beginning here. But again, that was Bitfinex. So you could say TA should account for fundamental events, TA should reflect fundamental events, whatever. But the point is Bitfinex happened. That's how we got down there. So yeah, but that's one way of identifying a trend. Another way, if we look at pitchforks, I couldn't actually fit a pitchfork that made sense over here, even if I curve fit it the best I could. So each method isn't always the best at trend identifying. Even up here it gets kind of noisy because you sort of start the downtrend, you do some recovery like a bull trap situation, and then the downtrend continues. So maybe that's why I had trouble drawing a pitchfork here, but the pitchfork on the uptrend, the current pitchfork, fits super nicely. I've tweeted about that a bunch. And another thing I've added, I just took this fractal here, accumulation, distribution. Remember, accumulation at the bottom, distribution at the top. So what distribution may look like would be a lower high, and then this would just break this zone. This doesn't have to be at this price level. I was just illustrating that. And there's some argument that this sort of structure kind of exists here. I don't know. We'll see. Trend identification is basically like as it happens. It's not exactly leading or lagging. I don't really think. It's more lagging than leading for sure. And then a third method is EMA. And something I just noticed today is like, look at this trend since basically Bitcoin started. Never below the 200 for very long until boom here. That's a clear sign of bullish weakness or bullish momentum waning. And then it stays below the 200 until here, boom. And again, we're in this uptrend, nowhere near the 200 at the moment. Definitely closer than maybe some parts have been, but that doesn't necessarily say that it's super weak or that it needs a pullback. It's kind of like at the mean, basically, of the 50 right now. So that's trend identification. Now if we go to reversal patterns, I keep talking about accumulation and distribution. So if we look again, accumulation was this bottom square. Distribution is going to be somewhere up here. It may be here. I don't know. I don't think it will be, but it might be. But this is what distribution would look like. Basically, just flip this fractal. Again, here it's just sideways. There's a clear ceiling and floor. You get a higher low, and then you break the ceiling. So here you would look for a clear ceiling and floor, and you break the floor, and then you fall down into the beginning of the downtrend. So the third part of this price projection, which I've seen zero people talk about. So I actually did this August 9th. I just never talked about it. Again, tons of jargon. This is on a point and figure chart. So that's part of the reason I even did the point and figure video. I will link that up in the annotations. So you can label all this, and this is all subjective, but the counting part isn't subjective. That uses math. So there was some argument for the first, this is the accumulation, and then the reaccumulation. So based on the accumulation and the reaccumulation, using math, there was a projection of 4,200 both times, okay? We obviously went to 5K, so you're 800 short, or 800 beyond the target. And then beyond that, it gets noisier up here just because I don't have much experience with either point and figure or this counting on the Wyckoff, but there's some other math to suggest that there's a third bullish target of around 5K. The throwback was 4,200, which we hit based on these two counts being the ceiling So if we break 4,200, the next target would be 5K based on these counts, perhaps. Not really completely sure. But that's sort of what I've got to figure out. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight the I Am Nomad's chart. He's been following it for at least 3 months now. He sort of labeled everything and drew it out. He also mentioned the 3480 level as far as a target for a bounce, which basically hit twice. And he talks a lot about it here. I'll leave all this in the description, the link. So yeah, definitely check that out if you're interested further. So as usual, like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. If you have any questions, let me know. Telegram, Twitter. Happy trading.